right, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody out there around the world. Welcome to another non-farm payrolls, and in the back of the week of one of the most volatile weeks we've seen in some time. This time, of course, bullish to the markets, but for how long? So we're talking about a lot of that today. Very, very big reactions around the world in stock markets to this US election. It's still going. We still don't know who's technically won. We'll be taking a look at that. We'll also be taking a look at the live markets, taking a look at gold, the volatility index currently and where it stands, dollar index and the tanking that has begun. And of course, whether we just hit a trend line of some significance on S&P 500 and we're going to see some resistance there. Let's say a quick hello to everybody from around the world that's joined us today. We'll go through a few of these. Hello, Johnny Bravo. Good to see you there. Danny, Meowdy Partner, Dr. Horton. Always good to see you, Doctor. Spot Price, Siddharth. Good to see you as well there, Siddharth. TK. Who else we got? Adil, MMJ, G, Faye, good to see you. Buzzblads, as always. Ginny Wang, Yogendra, and more. So thank you very much for joining us on this Friday morning for US stock trading. We're only about, an hour away now from non-farm payrolls. And then after that, of course, we've got the stock market about to open. Where are we though? Where are we? So we've actually moved down a little bit in Asian and European trading session. We've got a 34.79 now on the S&P 500, still well up for where it was even during the election day stream. We saw it go very, very bullish into even the uncertainty. The idea of a blue wave didn't quite happen, and then of course we saw gridlock in the Senate, and since then it's more of the same in terms of what the markets thought. But is it a bit of a bull trap? Is it too quick, too fast? We'll be taking a look at 2016 to try to figure out whether it is too quick, too fast, or whether this was unfortunately a little bit of a trap to many people. We really only hit that first buy zone. We didn't get that second 3,000 zone, only the first one. And I think the Nasdaq was the standout. I mean, above 12,000 today. What a move. That was 11.2 only the other day. That's pretty wild bullish movement there. Crude oil and Brent slightly down. Other notables, gold really turning bullish here. So clearly the market going up and gold going up seems to be that kind of unison thing. We've talked about how gold and silver, specifically more silver to us, is one of those strong metals really moving forward. When we go through a job cycle in terms of trying to build jobs, trying to build infrastructure, those kind of things, silver should continue to appreciate. So we'll see whether that is on the cards. So many people coming in here from all over the place. We've got people from Cali, we've got people from Detroit, we've got people from the UK, Australia, heaps and heaps of different people. Antonio says today it's going to drop at least 6%. Take a print. Now, I'm not sure if he means take a pint, because we need to drink alcohol after hearing 6% drop, or he wants us to print that because he's predicting it, but he can tell us in the room. Definitely a lot of FOMO around the world. A few people mentioning Bitcoin FOMO. Let's have a quick look at Bitcoin FOMO moving through the world. 15,560. Almost tapped that 16K today, so we'll have a look at that. We kind of said this was the next level for Bitcoin. Let's just quickly bring it up now. We'll start there with Bitcoin and then we'll move through the others. Actually, I'll use this one here. So Bitcoin, almost as wild as it can get, really. That's definitely very FOMO-like. We've hit a 16,000. If we go through, we get rid of these, we don't need pivots for Bitcoin. I don't think pivots are going to be that helpful. But if we have a look here at a weekly, and we talk about where we thought it would go next after it cracked 14,000. Like 14,000 should have been more resistance. It just wasn't. We saw dollar tanking, and that's led to a lot of FOMO on Bitcoin. I would not be surprised at all now to see a blow off this particular asset. Bitcoin could certainly see a lot of selling. Previous closes here on the weekly around 16,000. And when we go to the monthly, one of the things we mentioned is it's never held a monthly candle above the 14,000 zone. So it's never held, even in that time where everything was going crazy, there were two giant wicks that fully rejected. So this is definitely setting up for, potential of a decline now or some kind of blow off. We'll be watching Bitcoin very, very closely in our weekend analysis, and we'll also be watching it throughout this session. very bullish. Let's go to a daily here and a weekly and just kind of think about a few of these things. Very far away from the 20 exponential moving average. We've seen this a few times before in the live streams, haven't we? And also the analysis. When we get too far away from the 20, eventually it always catches up with it. Obviously, the nature of a 20 moving average anyway. But we have moved away at a speed that is possibly too quick. If we go to the daily here, we'll also notice that we're still tracking, decently up until the point where it just went hyperbolic. But 16,000 just before that, we saw selling. That's the normal human nature of Bitcoin. It's pretty crazy times out there. Pretty crazy times. Euphoria much? It was nuts, Aussie Cobbler says. Just sitting here babysitting my silver position, says household dog. No worries with as long as you're long there, household dog. But silver's looking okay right now. We'll take a look at that very, very soon. MS says, where is the stock crash? You always talked about the Nasdaq and Head and Shoulders dropping, etc. Greetings from Adelaide. So if we have a look at the Nasdaq and we consider the levels, I think it's worthwhile definitely considering this. So let's go through all of our levels here on the Nasdaq, and then we'll go to the S&P because that's always the most interesting one. So let's talk about levels and let's talk about critical thinking in terms of markets. So from a Head and Shoulders perspective, I guess what we were talking about originally was an inverse Head and Shoulders going long. It certainly went long for a portion, okay? So we thought it would go a little bit longer into the 12,000 and then it started to have some volatility into the election. From a Head and Shoulders on the downside though, I don't think we were talking about that at any point. Really what we were talking about more was the 200-point ranges. So we obviously had a very, very strong 11.8, 10.8, 11,000, 11,002, 11,004, 11,006, etc. All of those levels on the way down, if we even go to a 4-hour, you can see how the market interpreted those zones. Now, this US election was, of course, historic and it's had a very large move afterwards, possibly too quick. But look at all the 200-point ranges on the way down. It was pretty consistent. The only problem is we couldn't get through on the S&P 500 the lower level support. And when we can't get through a support, it's not signaling further downside. That's the thing with price action. The only thing that gave us a small signal to the downside in terms of cracking like the 3200 on the S&P, for example, was the Dow. And what do we know about the Dow? The whole time this bull run's happened, it's faked us so many times. And that's why we said the Dow is the one that we can't be using as much. So the Dow is giving us a lot of fake signals and unfortunately gave it to us again. But if we want to think about how do we see a crash and when are we going to see something like that, crashes will only happen if you get through a super critical level. We would have needed this level here to be broken and then it will either crash off to the next zone being the 10,000 or it will come back up, retest it, and then of course continue to sell off. On the S&P 500, it's the same way. So if we're looking at the SPX, we'll use the SPX for example. What you'll notice here is we hit the same lows. I mean, that's a level of support. We've always maintained this has been a buy zone in the market. Do we expect it to be that incredibly gappy up? No way. That was very, very fast. Even during the election day, it was incredibly quick. But then it continued up and now it's hitting this top end trend line and finding some resistance. So you can see that it's moved incredibly quickly. It's probably due for some kind of pullback. We'll talk about that more. But from a price action standpoint, you do not get a strong sell signal until you get a close underneath the previous support. The crash cannot happen until it gets under this support here. I hope that makes some sense, Aussie Cobbler. But this level here, it becomes super important. Price action closes are everything. And significant levels are everything as well. Notice even over here, some people say, oh, well, it looked like it closed. It gapped below, but closed bullish. It did not ever close underneath this zone. Not once. When we closed under this zone, which we mentioned over here, it came up, retested it, acted as resistance, and then sold off. That's normal price action, normal levels. What we're seeing right now is not normal. This is a very, very bizarre market. Do these gaps make sense? Are these gaps good? Well, that'll be determined very, very soon. We have to hope if we're a bit bearish and we need to get back in. You know, I mentioned this earlier in the week. My strategy was put a third in on the day, put a third in before, and then put a third in on the analysis of whoever wins, because I didn't know who was going to win. But, did I get that last third in? No. That last third's not coming in right now. So now I need to find a retracement. Could that retracement be a 3,400 level? Certainly could be. It's very, very difficult to predict that the market was going to go this bullish with a hamstrung kind of position. We didn't know. I mean, if things go through and it was a blue wave, things look different. If things go through and Trump wins easily, things look different. That's the nature of heavy news, heavy fundamental risk weeks. They're not technical. They're just crazy. I hope that does make some sense. So up here is definitely the resistance zone. We're seeing futures come under some fire. We'll go over to futures in a moment. But one thing that I want to mention is now that we're up here, if we're taking a fib of this last big gap pull move all the way up, where does our 38,250 fib level run to? Around that 3,400 now. And that's going to be that zone where we got so many reasons to be long. It would be really tough to get through this zone from a bear perspective now, because if we did pull back, we're going to have a 20, a 50, both sitting there being dynamic support. We're going to have a 38.2 and a 50 Fibonacci. All of those levels right here. It's going to be very, very tough to get through. So that's kind of like some of the analysis we're looking at here on the S&P, but it's pretty wild. It's pretty wild. This is not that normal. I actually was doing some quick analysis just previously. Let's go back to 2016 before we go into the other ones and take some questions and all of those types of things. So if we go through 2016, here's of course election day. So we can see if you actually looked at the futures of this day, it was actually lower. The market was actually lower. Then it gapped up, continued to move bullish, got through all resistance and just kept going. And you actually couldn't stop it. It barely pulled back throughout that first kind of couple of months. So throughout that first couple of months, it didn't pull back. Now that was the last reaction to, of course, Trump getting in this case. Now, what is the reaction going to be this time? Well, we've seen incredibly bullish momentum. If we go out, we pull it back over to where we are now, we've seen this incredible bullish momentum. Now, statistics based on 100 years would state that we should have a relatively neutral to negative month. But the last time was really aggressive. Times before that have often been, ups and downs depending on the election result. And we're still in a lot of uncertainty. So a lot of it depends on the Senate. A lot of it depends on how if Trump does lose, what ends up happening there. Does he give it up? Does he block stimulus? Does something? I don't know. We don't know what's going to happen there. Do they do a deal? We don't know. Pavel says, hey Tom and chat, SPX plus XPX put call ratio is 1.9. Will Wall Street give all those people its money? Usually they don't. No, you're right. So if we have a look at CBOE put call ratios and refresh that one off here, for November 5th, we've got a 1.9 reading, which means a lot of puts have been opened over the last 24 hours. That's not exactly what you expect to usually mean a selling market. And that is always one of those things that you go, oh, okay, well, let me just get this PCC up. There we are. So the day before that, I guess, was a little bit lower. Let's go to the daily here. So that's the one day probably before, but that's where the put call ratio is here from the CBOE. If you're putting it on a line chart, in terms of the reading here from the 5th, it looks like it was 1.9. So it's probably not updated to that one properly. Overall though, yes, if we have a high put call ratio, you usually don't see the market go down as much. There's a lot of manipulation going on from that. But this is a very, very quick move. We've smashed an R1 straight away into the trend line here, drawn through the top 3 peaks. Moving averages, starting to move up. Obviously never got the full cross either. Another thing that you are looking for. We never got the SPX, remember the real market cross. We only got the cross on the Dow, and the Dow has often done this to us. Kim Lim, yep, we'll take a look at the Euro US dollar. Let's go over some of the questions here and things that are coming in from the community. And I wouldn't mind hearing the community's thoughts today, whether they think that we're going to have a down week or up week next week. Let me know, down week or up week next week. Always interested. Does the VIX suggest a large pullback coming in here from Michael? So Michael's looking at the VIX. The VIX is still high, but nowhere near where it was before the election. Not too sure we're seeing any incredible volatility here. Look, the thing with trading is I actually don't trade these kind of weeks. Investment's different to trading. Yeah, I would never trade in this week. Why? Because it's just too investment different, but trading's too difficult. You've got FOMC, you don't know what's going to happen. You've got non-farm payrolls, we don't know what's going to happen. Obviously, the expectation, we'll go through that soon. And then you've got US election, can be wild each way. If you're investing for long-term positions, it's totally different to trading. I think that a lot of people understand that. I'm sure a few people have traded this week and not maybe done as well as they'd hoped because things went counter to what a lot of expectations were. We're always perma bulls generally in the market here with corrective phases. Now, obviously, we went to a crisis. A lot of people would have thought, a lot of long-time veterans would have thought 12 to 18 months worth of bearish market, and then, of course, recovery. Central banks stepped in, low interest rate environment, all sorts of other things. And, of course, now we're seeing an increase in the market. But we have to usually be bulls on the market for most of the time. Medium long, you're always usually a perma bull. Short term, sometimes you can get involved. But this week in particular is incredibly difficult. And I've said that quite a few times. Unexpected Visit says $5 trillion of investing cash still on the sidelines. I do believe there would be a huge amount of money. Absolutely. Eddie says, hello, fellow Aussies. I'm in Melbourne. Hello, good to see you there, Eddie. A few people coming in here with different comments. Down, down, up. Down, up week for sure. So next week, Tom Wilkins thinks up for sure. Down, then up. I tend to agree with that one. I think a little bit of a decline, then into an up move. Do you think it's big institutions buying that caused the massive bull move? I think that well, let's actually have a look. So let's have a look at S&P 500 volumes here. And we'll just use one of the free resources. So, I think Yahoo probably has one of the better ones. So we'll go here to the historical data and we can see here the volumes. The volumes were larger by a little bit. So the volumes were larger by a little bit. Fours almost into fives most of this week. Now, if you look at the previous weeks, we had some 4 weeks and everything. October 28th, we obviously had a 5-day. October 29th, if we're thinking about these on the market, we had a couple of down days coming into the uncertainty. Then we had, of course, the Tuesday where we saw the 4.2 number. Then we saw 4.7 and 4.8. So it's not a huge amount. If you actually probably culminated the down days to the up days, this is a decent amount, but it's not unusual. It's not like a huge chunking in of money. I think when we did a poll, I would say about 70% of the audience, maybe 80% of the audience was bearish into the election. I was probably pretty neutral to slightly down, I guess. And if you think about that, like I always go with it as if you're not sure and you're investing, then you can put a third in, a third in, and a third in. You can make kind of a decision that way. Thanks very much for the subscriptions coming in there across the world. That's really good. Brian says, damn, almost forgot you were on today. Howdy, Tom. Hello, Brian. Good to see you there. So, bunch of stimulus questions coming in now as well. Let's just quickly go over to this election stuff. Things are happening here on the election. Let's refresh this because it's changing all the time. Probably a lot of people are sick of the election, but we don't have the answer yet. So, Georgia turned blue partially last night for about 1,000 votes. Arizona obviously tightening. Looks like Trump could be possibly even winning Arizona here. It's definitely getting much, much tighter. Nevada, who knows? They're not counting properly. It takes too long. Alaska's really not counting. And then Pennsylvania is really the big story. I mean, obviously, Biden gets this one. It's over. And his postal votes are huge right now. So if this does switch, let's say on Friday, it's probably done. From that standpoint, and then let all the rest of the stuff commence. But what happens over the next 100 days? I can't remember exactly how many days until, if Biden wins, until Trump would have to get out of office. But it's sometime, Jan, Feb next year. When that happens, or up to that point, will we see turmoil? Will we see potentially releases of documents that aren't meant to be released? I don't know. Things could happen, yeah? Crazy things. So there will be that level of potential volatility that could come into the market from that. We've got stimulus also potentially could be one of the questions. If it is late or they start fighting again amongst each other, I tend to think they'll probably get a stimulus done, but who knows? This is still stuff that the market won't like. And that's why when you see a move this fast, let's go to the futures here, just a blank screen with the futures on it. We've got a 1.07% decline, which was almost to 34.62, 34.63 today into the non-farm payrolls. So what's the non-farm payrolls expecting here? Well, we've got here non-farm employment change expecting about 600, unemployment rate expected to drop, it looks like, to a 7.6 figure. So more jobs, decent jobs coming in, and then of course unemployment rate to decline due to that and a bunch of other stuff. But if Biden does win, will certain states go back into lockdown? Will they go into partial lockdown? These are questions that I'm always asking. They're not technical questions. I'm just going to follow the price action ultimately. But these are things that could... I always think, okay, what are the potential volatility events? Then you look at the price action. And that's because this has been gap up, gap up, gap up. That's 3 mega gaps over 3 days. It's very hard for a market to sustain so many big gaps. It's due for a pullback, and I guess the target there would be 3,400. But yes, this is much bigger than we expected. Few people saying that Trump would have been better for stock markets. I think the history will show to us over time that everything is generally okay to stock markets. Stock markets are just going to do well in low interest rate environments as money needs to go somewhere. Bonds look terrible right now. I mean, I don't know. I've never seen bonds look this bad. Some people might disagree with me, but bonds are crazy. A few people want me to look, and I will do this for the Aussies, being 11:54 p.m. We'll have a look at the ASX 200. Tell you what, to the community, a few people, big shares. We want to see big stocks. Give me a few to look at, and we'll look at those together. Let's look at the ASX 200 here and just consider this weekly. So we'll load up the futures, which we'll be trading. Actually, we won't. We'll load up the index. We don't want to use the futures here because the question is about the close on the ASX 200. Oh, what am I doing? I need to get rid of this thing. Oh, that's why. There we go. So 61.90 close for the ASX 200. Relatively bullish, yeah, but not quite bullish enough. I think the ASX gives a sweet call on it next week if we get through. So here we have the 6200 zone. We have not closed. Let's go to a weekly here and just put this in perspective. We do have bullish engulfing candle, okay, on the weekly. Weekly is key to a lot of stock market indices. So we do have a little bit of a bullish engulf here, but we haven't got quite above that 6200 zone. So what will most likely occur here is we might get above on a daily, significantly, maybe even next week. And then if we come back and touch this level here is going to be super good. I mean, it's a 6200-ish zone. It's going to act as a great level of support based on the fact that it's broken past. I mean, it's been accumulating in this range. It's like a giant channel now. So if you were going to go with where do you put your next target, remember close is the key. It always will be, always has been. This time it faked. When it got through here, the weekly never did. So you take something like this range, maybe 5,800. This is a 400-point range. What's that calling for? Well, it's calling for another 400 points, back up to 66. There's previous little bit of support there on the last tick while it was falling through. So we've got some good levels here, for sure. Absolutely. XJO is looking prime for bull move, but at this stage, we need it through the 6,200. In a long time, I've always said 6,200 has been the key. And I think a lot of people don't wait for confirmation enough. And when you don't wait for confirmation, unfortunately, you get stuck. Ginny Wang would like to see the same old list. Yeah, we'll be going through the big ones for sure. Mike would like Apple, JD, Tesla, Microsoft, AMD. AMD we will be looking at. Anyone see those AMD processors? Whew. AMD on fire. Intel burning. It is crazy how far ahead AMD are right now. They are smoking Intel. Intel like IBM or something. I'm sure they'll turn it around. They usually have, but wow. It's pretty crazy. So we've got AMD opening at 0.7 down here. Again, this is just a great example of the levels that we were talking about the other day. You know, we spoke about this level. We spoke about if AMD closes under this zone, where's it go? I mean, there really is no structure all the way down, but that wasn't what the market did. It hit a perfect support. I mean, there's no way that we can say this isn't a perfect support. We even got a bit of an engulf off it. Then we got a crazy jump. But AMD might decline a little bit with the market, hit maybe this 80. They're going to do well, though. They're smoking it with it. This absolutely great processors they've just bought out. I highly recommend people look at those. If you're building a new computer, it's clearly the choice. Clearly the choice. Very powerful, relatively well priced, pretty good stuff. And they haven't been like that for a decade. So very interesting. AMD, good support, moved up, probably due for a little bit of a decline, possibly just due to the broader market. And then I could see it very much going 88 plus. They're going to sell a lot of processors, and their graphics cards aren't bad either. And due to the shortages of the NVIDIA cards, potentially you might see quite a lot of sales coming out. So it's a return to form for AMD there. A lot of the prices are in, but with tech stocks, if they do well and they're growing, they get valued even higher and higher and higher and higher. So that's one of the things that super does happen. $77 coming with $5. He says, "Good day to Tom and the FXE crew and the team here. Thank you very much, $77. Always appreciate your support." Let's go up. Here's a few other questions that came in. Unexpected visit said stock market enjoying the gridlock. It certainly is. Can we see though, like, I mean, I know it's painful if you're waiting for further declines and you didn't get in the market, but this did happen, yeah, but it could have gone also the other way. The only key thing is that when you get a level, if you're happy with that level and you've got investment, you did get a corrective phase down to a support. But I did see it in the comments, and I know quite a few people are obviously a bit upset about the stock market move at the moment. Things generally come back, though. Maybe not back to those levels again once we get this US presidential election out of the way. We'll have to see. Dollar index. This has been probably the other story of the week. Look at that stop hunt. Look at that dirty stop hunt. That's pretty nasty. So people that were short on the dollar, this is obviously the election day. We saw a big move up. This is actually a very good pattern for just generally if you're Forex trader or a commodities trader. This is the type of thing that generally happens, but the wick will be even higher. So what will happen is, say you're short in here. You'll usually place your stop loss somewhere in this level, 94, or just above the 94, or just above the wick. And what will happen in a short, so say you have like a double top. You'll be here, let's say, shorting it, and then all of a sudden it'll spike up, and then it will reject that spike by the end of that 4 hour, that daily. We've all been there and we all get hit, yeah? This is a very common technique. In fact, if that happens, that's your good short signal. I'll give people a tip on that one. That's a good short signal when it goes low again. Why is that? Again, this is the stop hunt type of candle. If you see this happen around a New York session, if you see this happen around a London session, if you see this happen around even an Asian session, the London, New York session would be better. That is the absolute stop hunt session. Often comes through with some crappy little bit of economic news, not like an election like here, but it could be CPI, could be PPI, it could be a 15-minute chart. When you have this particular candle, when it makes that new low, it doesn't have to close, just makes a new low, it's generally a very bearish signal. And of course, the opposite for the bull side. Always keep that in mind. This particular candle coming off previous strong resistance and going a slight wick higher and then rebounding all the way back down, looking like a hammer or a shooting star, is always very, very nice. Definitely check that out. So yeah, dollar index coming back down here to the 92. We would expect some buying pressure to come in for the dollar. But let's go to the bigger picture here, the one that we always consider. If we get through 92, what does that mean? So it looks like dollar is coming down now. That's a mixture of things coming through to damage the dollar. We saw also the reaction to any type of stimulus talks dumping the dollar as well recently. So maybe that is part of the reason why. We've also got Biden. We kind of thought that if Biden was going to get in, potentially he still is going to get in. If that does happen, then we saw dollar weakening. Now, when Trump was looking like he was winning the election, dollar was strengthening. So that's partly that movement. If we get through the 92, the dollar could continue to tank all the way to the 88. And if we have a look at the monthly, you'll see why. Every single time, this 92 has been key. It's been key over here. It's been key here, it's been key here, it's been key here, 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 and here. This is a monthly DXY. So these are the kind of levels that if we break, I pay super attention to, and I scalp all the way down. I scalp it all the way down. Scalp, day trade, intraday trade, whatever you want to do. These are the kind of areas that generally fill. It's like that fill zone. So you got to make your own decisions, but that's the kind of fill areas that do happen. And sometimes you hit important zones, and this is certainly a very important zone for the dollar. Thanks very much for the subscriptions coming through there. Thank you very much. What indicator are you using that shows the dotted lines? That's a pivot indicator there, Zaki. Pivot indicator. So we're now about 27 minutes off the non-farm payrolls numbers. Let's have a look around. I'll actually load up the old Webull. Let's load the Webull. And we'll have a look at the pre-market as well. We should have some pre-market coming in here. There shouldn't be anything in this one. So Webull actually were good enough to reach out to me, and they're going to give us a feed because they've seen us using it recently. We're not allowed to have Webulls in Australia, but it looks like a pretty good American platform for people getting into trading. So we do have an affiliate link below now. We didn't have one, but they give you free stock or something like that, which is good. But basically, we should have a direct feed soon with all of the live data and everything for us to use, because we're going to use this a lot for our pre-market analysis. I'd like feedback as well, whether people do like Webull that have used it. I've just used the platform briefly, but I can tell you what, compared to some Australian platforms, it's pretty okay. Australian platforms, you have to pay for the platform. It's usually Iris. Otherwise, it's some horrible other thing. And yeah, I don't think it's that bad. These Robinhood, Webull kind of updates are good. And I also heard from them that they've got a whole bunch of new things they're going to be adding soon as well, which should be pretty cool. So let's have a look at the pre-market here. It looks like all of these stocks like Square are doing really well because we did see earnings from them. We've got Trade Desk, Cloudflare, whole bunch of other areas doing not too bad. We'll just quickly bring this up to the 20 billion plus. We like to go the bigger stocks here whenever possible. What's declining today in the pre-markets? There's some pretty big moves here, and you can tell that these moves each way are due to repositioning based on election to a degree. And look at these declines here coming through in the pre-market. Charles Schwab down 3.5, HP down 2.14, Zoom down 2.1. Zoom had a big miraculous recovery we can see over here. Tesla 438. Technically Tesla should be pretty good if Biden wins. Continue with the special credits. Not bad. Big movement into those kind of areas and the idea of that stuff. So should do okay there. It's still relatively cheap compared to where it was. I say cheap inverted commas. I don't think the stock's cheap fundamentally, but it's definitely lower than it was when it was hitting that 500 plus. Gabe makes content, says Australian platforms are, I'll call it bad. Absolutely, Gabe. A lot of Australian platforms have a lot to improve on. Tesla has been pinned down for a while. Too many shorts, says Unexpected Visit. Yeah, absolutely. I think Tesla has had a lot of shorts on it, but it could, that's the thing. When it explodes, it explodes. We'll probably do some analysis on Tesla pretty soon. So VIX is increasing slightly here. Definitely declined a lot. Could this be a big trap on the S&P 500? These are the futures. We can see how bullish it got. Could this just be all some crazy trap that's going on right now? Everyone will know my optimism is pretty high for the next 12 months for the market. I've got a pretty big December bull run pegged as well. So I think that Christmas could be okay. But that being said, that doesn't stop this market coming down at least 38.2 to 50% of the pull relatively quickly. 3,400, that area is going to be massive support for multiple reasons. Previous 34.20, 34.30. Anyone that's been following the videos for a long time, following our content for a long time, we talked about this area. We got this area relatively correct, I would say, in terms of the break, in terms of the move afterwards. But if it comes back down, this should be a key buy area for the market based on those two moving averages, based on the fact that the fib would be the 38.2 start. Between the 38.2 and the 50 is one of our favorites. So are we going to have that coming into non-farms, coming into the open today, some uncertainty, some profit taking into the weekend? That's a thing. How many traders out there went, wow, we made 10%. Why don't we just take some profit? As Unexpected Visit says out there, isn't this just profit taking? A few people asking if we've got divergence on this market. So let's have a look through our, probably MACD is probably the one. We'll use MT4 MACD for that. So we'll absolutely use MT4 MACD. We'll go to probably a 4-hour or an 8-hour chart. So at this stage, yeah, I mean, you could say there's some minuscule divergence through there, and there's obviously a ton of divergence through here. The main reason you're going to have divergence though through all of these is just think about the price. So this time it meandered up relatively fast, but not super fast. This time was extremely fast. And this is of course the first peak. So if you're going through all the peaks, you can see that this peak is higher than this peak, which is higher than this peak. But with divergences, you also want price to be making the same highs. So you want it to be similar highs. These aren't exactly similar highs. So I'm not going to use this indicator too much, but this is one of my favorite indicators. If you're using MACD, MT4 MACD in TradingView, well worth checking out. Well worth checking out. Yeah, this is very, very good for doing divergences, especially in channels, especially in ranges. So yes, there is divergence there. If you checked other indicators, we don't often bring that many on to our charts because the thing is they'll always be showing you the same thing. Got a big return here, of course, on the 4-hour with the RSI. We haven't quite got above that 75 yet. We were super extended over here previously. If we go to things like a daily, you could say, oh, well, it's just in the zone. It's not looking overbought or all oversold. If we're taking a look at the daily across time, really only when it hits an extreme level will it signal a big decline. There's the last time it hit a super extreme level. You can always put an extreme level on indicators like this and know that the time is close to a retracement. But sometimes it's not that big. Like here over here in Feb 17, there was a retracement. It wasn't that large. We're certainly not in that point right now. This is just going to be most likely a correction to pretty much get rid of some people's stop losses. People would have bought into the hype. People would have been bought into the euphoria. How many people are feeling FOMO out there? Let me know in the community. Are you feeling a bit of FOMO right now for the stocks? I think a few of us probably would be. If you're not in, you'd be feeling a bit of FOMO with all these 3 gap days up. Matthew Tainch says, new Australian platforms Superhero and Stake are game-changing for investing. Yeah, I'm in discussions with one of those, Matthew. So, yeah, I agree. They're not bad. Need work, I think, but definitely considering with one of those. I always like to use the platforms as much as possible before I make any kind of recommendation on what's going to happen. So let's go around the markets right now. Let's have a quick look, refresh these markets around the world. This is finbiz.com for new viewers out there. We've got 458 current viewers, so welcome and thank you for joining us for non-farm payrolls, which is only just a little bit over 15 minutes away now. Got VIX increased slight on the day. Gold, silver. We still haven't looked at gold and silver. We'll be doing that soon. Copper continues its appreciation, continues going up. And we've got S&P 500 now declining a little bit. Remember, copper is one of our indicators of strength. You know, if we're looking for crash signals, we didn't get one on copper. We just got a corrective phase signal. So that's always that thing where we know in the back of our mind, if copper starts crashing and we've got the market going at the same time, they're both usually, the market starts or copper sometimes precurses it like it did during the start of this crisis. That was not happening. Round in the Forex markets, we've seen, of course, drop in the US dollar, leading to strength, Euro, US dollar CAD, New Zealand, all of those. Might just quickly go over to a couple of currencies here as well, because we are coming into non-farms. Often the levels are broken and usually a resistance or a support is reached before non-farms. So where's the euro? Well, the euro is sitting right around that previous resistance right now of 1.87, right on it. If we go down to the 4 hour, you'll notice it's pretty much reached there. It did a little bit of consolidating. I think if you went to a 1 hour, actually, this would be signaling even more bullish intentions in terms of the way that this market kind of angled down. It looks like a bit of a symmetrical. It's broken out, but yeah, it's right at that resistance. This is pretty common for currencies and for stocks before earnings announcements. Notice again, the pound coming right up to a level of resistance. It's now coiling just before it makes a decision. So we'll line up a few of these. Just talk about it. Pound right on resistance before the announcement. Again, do we want to trade non-farm payrolls? Generally not. Generally, we don't want to. We've all been there. We've traded a few of these events, so they don't always work out that well. Shane says, Tom, China just banned copper exports from Australia. They were stockpiling copper. They're also stockpiling iron ore right now, Shane. Yep, we certainly are copying it. So Australia, unfortunately, gave themselves a massive $6 to $7 billion 12-month problem. We're in huge problems from that. But anyway, it's another thing that's going on in the world right now. Australian dollar slightly above. So this one here goes with the market. And if the stocks are looking good, look at that. We hit that 70 the other day. This level here was so critical for the Australian dollar. A close below this would have signaled maybe 4 to 5 cents selling on the odd dollar. Didn't do it. Got bullish on the Australian dollar. Let's have a look at silver now. Silver, every 50 cents and every dollar is usually very, very good resistance support. We're about to approach 26. I think that's very significant for silver. If we put this on a chart here, we'll see why. Support, 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 support. First touch, resistance. Could it blow through it? Sure. But the resistance will most likely have some selling pressure. And why is that? We're getting pretty far away here from even the 4 hour 20. It does happen sometimes, like it happened over here, but 26 should act as resistance. And then if we ever do get through 26, it should act as pretty good support for the long-term bullish pressure most likely going to occur on silver. Silver should continue up. A deal, not really. BTC is pretty high right now. So BTC, we looked at that. If you scroll back to the beginning of the stream, go throughout 4 minutes in, 3 minutes in, we did talk about BTC relatively quite a lot. We will be talking about it again probably after non-farms. And on ZE, FOMO'd the SPY. Yeah, a few people would have FOMO'd. SNE, yeah, FOMO big time. Why do you use trendline? They seem to be pretty effective on the SPX. I think you'll find they're pretty effective when you feel like making them effective. I look, big time frames, they can be effective. So, you know, some popular massive trend lines that people use, if we just want to talk about trend lines quickly, things like this. So people will draw maybe this one going through the tops. Very valid, incredibly valid trend line. We've drawn one going through the tops here on the daily. I think that's a valid trend line. I don't draw too many trend lines because it's very easy to draw a billion trend lines and then say, oh, they all work. I've seen a lot of people drawing trend lines recently on the stock markets and just any particular stocks. And they're drawing trend lines where they're drawing peaks like here, here, here. And they'll say, yes, look at that. Is that a good one? It's a good one, yeah, guys. I like this one. Look at that. It touches all these zones perfect. Look at that one. And we got some support. And we got some resistance. And yeah, I stopped it with my trend line. The problem with that is it's not a replicatable thing. How can you do that? How can you even say that all those points are key? When you're drawing through the peaks, it makes a lot of sense. When you're drawing through these peaks coming down, it makes a lot of sense. So wedges are good, but I'm just not a fan of trend lines. Horizontal support, resistance, and psychological numbers would be my choice. And that's just because this is everyone looks at this. It is a key trend line. It goes back heaps, many months, but not always do you have great trend lines. I kind of get annoyed about trend lines. It reminds me of how I used to be, where I used to just draw stuff for the reason and say, yeah, that was good. Yeah, you get some crazy charts. Shane says, FOMO will kill people in this fake rally. All crypto just jumped. Just then, let's bring up a BTC. All crypto just jumped. No, not that much just then. You got me excited. Look, we've been very bullish on crypto since 10. Obviously 12 was the first resistance, but we kind of thought that it would break through. I did think it would hold 14. I must admit, I thought it would hold 14. Some rejection there. Some rejection was probably expected at 14, but 16 may be the next zone. Crypto is well known to have very bullish runs on it. How important are gaps on the daily chart of SPX, says Matthew? Look, they're pretty important. You don't often see them that often in a row. I mean, I'd have to probably go through a bunch of stats to find them. We had some gaps. Let's go to SPX here. So gaps really mean that it's holding, of course, the movements during the Asian and European session. We're only 11 minutes off non-farms, by the way, everybody. So we've had some gaps recently, which were pretty aggressive. We had a gap. We had gaps here, gap with some gaps, gaps down, gaps up, gaps everywhere. Usually you don't see that much kind of wild swings. Like we go through normal trading times. Let's go back here in 2019. Some gaps down, little movements up. This is the boring times, yeah? This is when you find out whether you're really a trader and investor, when you can handle this. I actually kind of like this. I find this easier, but you're not seeing those big movements, hey? And you just don't see this many gaps. Like we go through all of history over here. There's just not a huge amount. So I think that it is important that we've seen some pretty euphoric moves. Now, is that just because the market is seeing forward, which it always does, and saying, okay, now we're going to get everything we want. We've got gridlock market. Gridlock market equals positive, usually more than maybe a market or a US election that goes through. So if let's say it was a blue wave, it's actually more negative towards the market. Markets perform well in gridlock to a degree, supposedly. So they're maybe projecting that out. But we've seen a lot of fake moves, a lot of very terrifying kind of moves each way. And this has me thinking there should be at least a squeeze down at least to 3,400. We could be wrong, but we're not going to see further real bullish movement until we get above this trend line. Now, we'll say trend line in this case. I think this is relatively valid. What's going on with odd US dollar? Well, odd US dollar is really moving with all the other pairs right now, and especially the market. So odd US dollar is just doing its little coil. We talked about pound right at resistance before non-farms, euro right at resistance before non-farms. Let's take a look at gold now. Gold, really nice trade when it closed above, did not come back as far as you would want. So in a normal trading week, a normal market, never lose faith in this, yeah? Never lose faith in the conservative entry, guys. This is not a good week of trade from a long time kind of investment journey if you want to be in the market for a long period. The market should have returned back to 1930 and tested it. It shouldn't be this bullish. It usually would not be. It had a very nice bullish run. Usually it will close, crack, come back, test. 20 will hit. It's one of the best trades out there, this one. The 20, the previous resistance acting as support, the roll reversal, the fib, usually a 38.2. It's the best. And it will go back to that probably next week in the coming weeks. But this week is unusual. It's almost untechnical. You cannot almost put it in technicals. Predictions of technicals this week, how can you? It's a fundamentally driven week. There's only one way to look at it. What about swing trading, says Jose? I am not basically swing trading. I think investing this week was okay because you're looking at the long-term, medium, long-term picture. But swing trading this week has been really tough. Do I think swing trading is the best type of trading? Absolutely, Jose. Absolutely. The best. It's really good. And Kit's asked this a few times, what is stochastic process? I'm not quite sure what you mean. What is the stochastic indicator? The stochastic indicator is fine, but it's mostly used in a range of our markets. I'm not sure if that's what you're talking about. Okay, what else we got here? Gridlock equals greed. Absolutely. So we're about 7 minutes off here from the non-farm payrolls. We're expecting 600K here in terms of numbers. We're expecting unemployment rate, of course, to drop. This is forexfactory.com. If you've never used forexfactory.com, it's a pretty good little website to check out. Obviously, it gives you things like daylight savings time shifts. It gives you all the red news. Really great for commodities, well, mostly currency traders, but it's good for stock as well. It gives you all of the results. And the other thing that's cool is you can load this little chart here and we can see how well people have predicted it in the past. So you can pull this across and you can see all of the predictions. And non-farm payrolls is one of those events that often can get very, very wrong. So it often can be off by quite a lot, and therefore the market will interpret it by going up, down, and all around. It will go everywhere. Jose says, has Australian opened for tourists? I think New Zealanders can come here. I don't even think we can go anywhere. Probably not. Jake says, thoughts on Alibaba? We'll be looking at Alibaba, Apple, and more. We also have JD.com, I believe, to have a look at. Let me just quickly put these down there. Alibaba. Is it a good long-term investment? 5 years. Most tech is pretty okay. Depends whether they're getting really in front of Amazon as well. If they're a real player versus Amazon, which they've already proven themselves to be in many ways, and they can continue to innovate, then they'll be all right. JD, Square, just quickly putting a few of these down. Siddharth says there is no catalyst for another crash, e.g. the thing we can't talk about, the crisis, GFC. Another soon is highly unlikely. Can't purge retailers that hard again soon. Put-call ratio is quite high. So the put-call ratio looks like it's dropped here, but if we look at the previous day, the put-call ratio on S&P 500 was 1.9. But that doesn't mean there wasn't a whole bunch, before that. You will have expiries as also. A whole bunch of expiries. Zaki says, why sit outside and expect the market to fall when you can ride the bubble? You can always sell when sentiment turns bearish. I think markets tend to go up a lot more than they crash. Of course they do, Zaki. The long term, if you're a long-term bull, absolutely, man. never say that long-term bull is not good. I always say that having a few accounts is not bad. Having a trade account and having your investment account. Dollar cost averaging, that kind of thing. What's wrong with it? Even Buffett will tell you buy index funds, and effectively he's telling you to buy index funds and dollar cost average into them. That's what he pretty much says. Yeah, so we will be looking at Tesla and a few others. Let's just quickly get up our screen here. We'll get up a 6 screen and we'll have a look coming into non-farm payrolls. We'll bring through a few charts. So we'll bring on the US 100 here on the left-hand side, bring that down to a 15-minute chart. We'll get our SPX, so we won't use SPX because we're not open. We use US 500. Chuck that on the 1 hour, I guess. We'll be looking at Dow later, so that is Dow on the right-hand side here. Dow has been pretty crappy compared to the others. Still good gains here. Look at Dow. It gives us the fake signal on the futures. Look at this. This was a fake signal, no doubt. Yes, it hit the 200 and found support, and you could say that's great, but price action should have dictated further selling. The Dow is now, I think, one of the worst markets to be looking at for confirmations on TA. My opinion only. Don't downvote me for that. US dollar over here. We'll put that one on 15 minutes as well. We'll get that riding up here. We've got gold down the... Oh, wait, that's... No, we've got gold here. Gold on the left. Got Dow, US dollar on 15 minute in the middle. And we will put... What's pretty susceptible to these kind of things? We'll put, I think, the euro. We'll see how this euro goes. We'll chuck that on the 15 minutes as well, and then we'll line that top up because we're basically hitting a resistance on a bigger time frame. So let's see how that goes. So we're about to find out about this news. We're only a few minutes away now. We will bring up the news. I'll put that on my screen. So I've got that ready, locked and loaded. And what do people think? Do you reckon we're going to get these jobs numbers? Let me know. Are we going to get the jobs numbers? Good, bad. Dollar index is here, by the way, in the middle. Always good to see that dollar index. We'll go some minute on dollar index just to see it really crank. we'll enlarge the settings on it. So we're only about 2 minutes away here, and we've got DXY on the minute just for fun, because I like to see it go fast. Yeah, we'll put the euro on the minute as well. Get a bit more excitement out there. And here we go. 50 seconds, guys. 50 seconds. Bad. A few people saying bad. Hello and welcome to everyone that's joining us as well for non-farms. We're about to see this result in only 30 seconds. If you enjoy what you're seeing, definitely consider subscribing, giving us a thumbs up. Helps us out. Thank you very much. All right, here we go. Not long now. Got a few positions maybe coming in. Remember, minutes on these two down the bottom right, so it will be faster on those than anything else. Will we have a fizzer or will we have some movements here? Okay. Should have result coming out now. It's probably going to be slightly delayed for me. Got dollar, slight movement up. Remember, these are minutes, so nothing too crazy. 595 figure 7 point. Is that what I'm getting? Wait a second, let me get this number in. Still 6.9% unemployment rate. $638K. $638K. Bring that number on. There it is. $638K coming through. So what's that doing? Oh, we're off the screen on our 1 minute. Not too crazy, realistically. Let's go back over to the bigger time frames here. Let's go to that 4 hour, just put it in perspective. Not too crazy at all. Sometimes with the non-farms, it's a little bit slow to get started though. Can be a fizz, it can be crazy. If this is your first non-farms event, Even though it's doing its little dance here and it's not going too crazy, just remember the non-farms can move very, very quickly sometimes if they are an unexpected result. So we've seen a little bit of a tick up here, it looks like, in the markets. The markets went up slightly. This is a 1 hour over here. Nasdaq, not really doing too much. Really looks like a fizzer result. Our resistance line here for the euro, not doing too much either. Okay, so we'll revisit that pretty soon. If the chat can let me know if things get a bit crazy while we do some analysis on Tesla and some other stocks. We've got a few stocks to look at here that community wants. We'll still be going into, of course, the open. We're now only an hour away from stock market open. That's always an interesting event. We've noticed, and we've usually seen stock markets do pretty well in the first hour and then sometimes decline throughout the day, or at least give us some kind of fake out response. Remember, Mondays in particular, guys, if you join us on the live streams we do every Monday for stock market, we've noticed a pretty serious event, and that event has always been that we get the fake out in the first hour. So we always get that fake out in the first hour. Markets across the board reacting relatively positively to that news. It's kind of in line. Bringing up a quick sector analysis of what we've seen over the last couple of days. I think everyone would like that, so we'll do that now. Okay, so here's a sector analysis of what's happening in the market since, I guess, the last 5 days. So we've got here all the sectors. We'll just have a look at the 1 day result. I'll get the chat back up. Here's the 1 day result. So this is what happened over the last day. So we had XLB doing really well here, the materials sector. It's probably partially due to what's happening to us in Australia as well. It's probably pretty bullish for the American market. We've got XLK doing well, XLF, and of course our energy sector not doing so great. If we go to a 5 day result here is the day of realistically the election. What has been the standouts there? Well, we've got healthcare doing much better due to the gridlock. We've got a decent move here by XLB. Pretty nice on the tech coming through there as well. And the lag is being utilities. So utilities not doing so well after being the most performed sector. And this really brings up the point that I talk about all the time. In normal trading markets, the reason you do sector analysis is to see the rotation. So if you're trading in a normal time, not this year because this year is weird, and maybe not even in the next 6 months, but after that, if you still want to be an investor, still want to be a trader, what are you going to have to do? You're going to have to do analysis on your sectors. And what that will do is think of it as a giant circle, yeah? And what happens is effectively you have like 4 arrows. So think of it as like 4 arrows. This is a standard sector rotation. A lot of big players use this. And what will happen is you'll go into kind of the growth, the overbought kind of phase. So you're going to go into the area where things are rising. This is the rising area. This is where it becomes overbought. This is where it becomes basically profit taking after it gets hyperactive, and then this is like the further decline area. And this is what's going to happen time and time and time again. And you're going to be able to notice it because a certain sector will take off and it'll be like so glorious and it will look great and everyone will get involved in it, and then it will have its decline. It may not go back to down here, but it'll have its decline back to like a 38.250 fib. So it might pull back a decent amount of the sector rotation. And then one of the hated sectors will come through and become popular. And it just keeps going over and over and over again. It's just basically cyclical. Throughout bull runs, you usually see at different periods of a bull run as well. A little bit different to right now, usually have different areas doing well during that bull run. So a lot of people are calling XLI right now, industrials, to do well. Industrials would have been my pick and was my pick, and I think it was a few of the chat's picks as well, as one of the better sectors. Now, I've always been pretty bullish on materials as well recently. I would not have picked XLV because I thought it was risky for me, but hopefully that makes some sense. So back over to the markets here, we've got a movement up now in the Nasdaq that's pretty significant. We're hitting 12,000. S&P 500 now trading at 3,500. Dow moving up as well. Dollar continuing to decline here a little bit, and euro and the other one not moving too much. So let's now have a look around some of the stocks. Can we find any value, any diamonds in the rough during this relative nice pickup here? We actually need some moving averages. Let's get them on. We'll use this one. Go back over to a few of the questions here. Kim Lim says, beat on unemployment, but weaker average hourly earnings. Thanks very much for the subscriptions coming through here as well. Jackson's asking about a bunch of currencies. All the currencies there are pretty much at resistance, Jackson. I tend to trade with the trend and then wait for resistance and then the conservative pullbacks into a moving average. That's usually one of my favorite techniques. Roberto says, how long can these cycles go on for? Months, years, etc. If you're talking about general bull cycles, usually around 8 to 10 years. Maybe 7. This next bull cycle could be even longer if the central banks never want it to crash again. I mean, basically, we didn't really come out of a bull cycle now. Yeah. If you're talking about sectors can go just for like half a year to a year. Maybe a little bit less. $77 coming in with $4 American. I guess that's for a coffee. Thank you very much, $77. Always appreciate your support on these streams. Okay, so let's now have a look at Tesla here and just talk about the current moves. So we'll go here to a daily just quickly. And what we thought last time was that we should have had support at the 250 exponential moving averages. We slightly got through that before the election day, as in it did crack through that zone. But this is usually a fairly safe kind of concept. And yes, it didn't. I know it didn't work perfect here, but I'd use the concept time and time and time again. And I call it like the 1, 2, 3, and I do the same thing for support. So you have your moving average hit once. Okay, cool. Well, we don't know that that's going to be a recurring thing. Then your moving average gets hit twice. Okay, found support there again. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're generally seeing buying pressure around that zone again. So yes, it got through a little bit, and yes, there was a slightly cheaper price, but generally speaking, in a relative decent run, especially if the market's doing this, rather than what it's doing here, which is consolidating after a hectic bull move. When it comes back to the moving averages these 3 times, especially in a market like this with a series of higher peaks, that is a very solid moving average strategy. The 1, 2, 3. And usually the 3, 4, and maybe even the 5 are all pretty good. And you'll see it time and time again. Have a look at an Apple chart. You'll see that. So what's it doing right now? Decent little move up here, but still weaker than some of the broader market. We've got a 1.3% down coming into market open right now for this. 2 moving averages sitting on top of each other on the 4 hour as well, sitting around the 420. Now the 420 was some buying pressure recently and some selling pressure recently. And we can also see that clearly the 2 moving averages being near each other was enough to act as dynamic resistance. So if that's the case and we get a pullback down to a 420, we may not, but if we get a pullback down to the 420, you can see that that would be always a great zone. The thing with stocks is often you're just basically looking for decent little levels. It's kind of like Netflix the other day. So I guess that's what I'm thinking on Tesla. If we're thinking where it goes, 460. Why does that make sense? Previous resistance, previous resistance, previous resistance. Always a good area. Makes sense. Probably slightly before being the nature of Tesla. What do we know? We all trade Tesla, yeah? Every retail trader's in Tesla. That's what they're buying. And if that's what they're buying, they're going to take profits slightly before. Bitcoin, same thing. Just before 16K, sell-off time. Just before 14K, sell-off time. Netflix over here. Now, Netflix, just another example of a quality kind of level being reached. Not quite down to the lows, but a quality level nonetheless. 475 was reached earlier this week. Bad earnings, gapped it down, came down a little bit. Not a crazy gap. Remember, with earnings, if we have a crazy move, and it's basically like something like a, I don't know, maybe 20% plus, 25, that is never good. Tech stocks can recover from that, but generally most stocks can't recover easily. It's a bad stat just to buy a stock after a 25% move. Cisco, Intel come to mind recently. So 475 was reached, really nice little base area or zone. So if you're drawing a zone, one of the best things to do is just kind of get your little rectangle out, draw it across the tops here, and create an area that you're interested in buying. And then you can look on the smaller time frames, target that area. So where do we think Netflix goes to? Well, it's logical to think it makes 550, maybe even 575, but 550 for sure makes some type of sense. A little bit of a pullback, maybe into the 2 moving averages, target on the smaller time frame, go long. That's the kind of concept that you think of in TA. There's always another opportunity. We've got Shane coming in here, Shane Coble coming in here. Apologies, I should at least contribute to Yoda Tom's free advice. Thank you very much. Shane, you didn't have to do that, man. Australian $20. So big shout out to Shane. He's really supported these live streams. Makes it much easier to come out and have a chat with everyone. We've got 596 people as well coming out to join us on this non-farms into, of course, Friday open on what has been a pretty historic week around the market. So if you enjoy what you see, definitely give a thumbs up, and of course subscribe if you keep enjoying it as well. Thanks very much, Shane. Appreciate that. This does remind me as well, I've got to do something here. There we go. And just setting up a few people here. All right, there we go. Thanks very much. Hopefully those guys enjoy that. All right, got some questions coming in here from the room as well. Can we have a look at Euro odd? I remember previous episode where you were expecting to see a rise. Okay, yeah. So let's have a look at Euro odd. So we were just talking about areas and zones, and I can't remember if Euro odd was particularly, you're talking about a while ago, yeah? That we were talking about this? Or are you talking about recently? Because we were talking about another one that wasn't Euro odd. This is a good classic case of like a 1, 2, 3 though, yeah? 1, 2, and now we've seen the 20 exponential hit again. 1 touch, 2 touches, 3 touches. Time will tell how it goes, but obviously in decline right now. Yes, so Euro odd many weeks ago, we were looking at this zone around here. We're looking at the 1.65. It bounced off at the area a little bit after giving some consolidation, came way lower, and then tried to get back up and then failed here. I'm not sure if that's what you're talking about, but this particular zone here, we were certainly targeting this area. We were targeting around that zone for the bull side. And in this case, what happened was we got the consolidation, a nice little smaller trade there. We didn't get much of a follow on though. So we got the consolidation, smaller trade, but we didn't get the follow on. I like to usually place 2 trades at these kind of zones. What I do is if I see that, I scalp or day trade for the range, for the correct stop. So you get a 1-to-1. And then what happens is you get 1-to-1 here with that risk, and then I leave my long term on. And what I do by that is if I have both of them, then if my long term fails, let's say it gets stopped or hunted down here, because I think my stop was around here for this one, then, well, you just broken even anyway, but you've still targeted an incredibly good zone. But my expectation was higher for this, yes, from a TA perspective only. There was another one we were looking at as well, which was odd New Zealand. Oh, one sec. Another thing, a bit of a shout out here on TradingView that's kind of nice is you can get a whole bunch of, you know, anything really. TradingView is awesome. I've actually had a chat to them. I've had a chat to TradingView privately a little bit about some of the things they've got coming. It's pretty good. Here's a great example of where 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kind of goes and plays out, and then the end of a trend. This happens on stocks, so you should pay a bit of attention if you can on this one. So we've got 20 moving average, 20 moving average, 20 moving average, 20 moving average. Notice how there's quite a lot of shorts. Even the last one, 20 moving average, and then it hits the low of 1.06 psychological and then bounces back. We should never be selling that level, yeah? Again, we could sell the first time, but not the second. So 20 moving average was clearly a thing in this downtrend here for odd New Zealand. Then we accumulate at the end of a trend. We get a couple of things. We get a bullish movement wick off this zone here. We also get a cross close before that above the 20, and then we get a massive bull candle that takes out the previous level of resistance and support. Then we get a pullback to it, the double moving average dynamic support. This particular zone here, just here, is a sweet buy. And it will always be a sweet buy. And it's a mixture of recognizing that we had a 20 that's been closed up against, breaking the trend. We had accumulation. We had a bullish looking candle here, which was a rejection kind of stop hunt, similar to what we talked about before. And then we've got the nice conservative pullback to the 2 moving averages at a 10650 level. That could be a stock, and it's sweet. Probably go back and watch that bit. Maybe gave you away. It gave a little bit too much there. But why not? Sharing's caring, yeah? Took me a long time to kind of realize those things. So Cisco is what I was looking at before there. $10, absolutely. Roman, do you think Nasdaq will go up or down today? This week, I can't call it, man. It's all based on weird fundamentals to do with the US election. Usually I say, okay, I've got a fair idea where the hell the thing's going. I don't usually call it much in election weeks or big news weeks like that, because it's going to be driven fundamentally. Like, are we in the top end of the range on the S&P? Yeah, we certainly are. And we saw that before. But we're not at a point where I think it could stop. It may not stop. So Cisco here is a stock that obviously has suffered recently. Is this the correct one? Cisco Systems. Yep. So it got to a resistance just before earnings. Another thing that's pretty common, we mentioned that at the start of the stream, usually a stock will go towards a level before earnings. Now, I'm actually pretty big on long-term cybersecurity and those types of things. Why is that? Because if you consider what's going to happen now that we're all online, now almost every business has got some kind of cloud thing or something else or blah, blah, blah. There's going to be a ton of hacking. So I'm not particularly buying Cisco, but I am buying spreads of multitude of different, hack kind of software or hack software systems. This particularly right now is right down at 35. It hit the zone. If you have a look over here, previously it hit it. Now, a lot of things extended through a technical here during the crash, during the crash period. I think it's at the perfect period for it now to accumulate or start to bounce back up. It's right at that area. If we look at the daily, we haven't quite got what generally would be the end of a trend. So usually what would happen is Cisco would go to like 38, find resistance based on previous support, come back down, test the low one more time, maybe even spike lower, taking out a lot of traders' stops, come back up, and then if we've got a double bottom off this stock and then it cracked 38, that's when I guess Tom comes in and Tom goes, yeah, I'm interested in this. I like seeing nice accumulation bases on these kind of stocks that have had a decline. Remember, Cisco copped it. It got smashed on that earnings day. It went from 47 and then in one day dropped to a 42. That's a significant drop. Not enough to probably turn me off, but definitely something worthwhile there. Keep your questions coming, by the way, on things that you want answered as much as possible. We can certainly do that. Have a look back over the markets on our screener here since non-farm payrolls. So we've had a euro US dollar slight movement up, dollar weakness. These aren't all equal in terms of timeframes. 4 hours here, 1 hour and 15 minutes. Nasdaq now trading at a 12,015, still down 0.73 for the day. S&P 500 big recovery here, 3,505 and the Dow basically erasing all of the losses during the European and Asian session. It's going to be interesting weekly close here. Have we got any updates on these counts? Let's refresh this Bloomberg thing. Is there any updates coming through yet? So this is still pretty close. Oh, okay. This is new. So Biden has taken over Pennsylvania in terms of his winning it. So I guess that pretty much seals the deal if the trends continue. It's done, yeah? Does that mean it's done? I mean, he just needed this one. Wow. That's a big deal. Let me check the only reliable source to US elections, which is Sportsbet. He's still got Biden at $1.05. I guess anything is possible. But yeah, Pennsylvania there, it looks like we've got Biden in front for the first time. All right, let's go back over to the markets anyway. Let's quickly look at this beat data as well. 82% beat rate, still beats 1,302, misses 279. Really in line with what we said, which was that we thought that the market should be relatively bullish even into this earnings season. This is a pretty big stat. This has been pretty good. The markets look fairly good. Beats, it wasn't like Q2 data where everything, you could beat, literally make a buck. You can make $1 and win. Well, this time was a little bit differently. So yeah, pretty interesting there. All right, let's go back to some of these stocks. We've got Alibaba to cover. We've got JD, we've got Square, we've got Tesla, we've got Beyond Meat, I believe. Buzzblad says Sportsbet already paid out on Biden. They certainly did. And then they regretted it, Buzz, because you know what they did? They put it as an all-in on Donald Trump. So if you wanted to bet on Donald, here it is. I had it on the other screen. Sportsbet here, all in, only $25 because they were scared. So they had to quickly reduce their risk. I think that's pretty funny. Shane says, Tom, as the US deregulates online gambling, does the US community have ideas? Yeah, I wonder if there's any particular ways that we can get access to that, because that's a huge industry. I mean, we know, Shane, being Australians love the gamble. Did you know that Australia is the biggest per person gambler in the world? I believe we gamble, or second maybe, we gamble like 1,300 Australian per year per person. Something like that. It's a crazy stat. That's because we drink way too much beer and like sports and gamble and everything. So, yeah, I think deregulation of gambling in America back to sports booking online is just huge. It's massive. Massive deal. Huge money. All right, let's go to Baba first. We're about 36 minutes away from stock market open. We'll obviously have to see what goes on there. Thank you very much for everyone that's joining us from around the world. So Baba obviously took a bit of a dive due to the China intervention of Ant Group. We had the earnings as well. It's come twice off the base of 280. Fairly bullish signal that's come twice with 2 wicks. This is just a long leg doji candle, so usually it just means indecision. But then yesterday, we got a fairly nice candle. Now, this has been trajectory high, and you've got to be bullish on the stock long term in general in terms of the way that, unless of course, the Chinese government get fully into it. It's been on the market now for a long enough period. This actually notably has been one of the better tech stocks that IPO'd and actually held it. So you can see IPO comes in, that normal bull run we always talk about, the decline of the first couple of years, then a very nice run. Usually it's a decline of about 2 to 3 years in tech stock, and then it becomes, a very nice company. So right now we have the pullback. If the rest of the market pulls back, I expect the 20 moving average weekly. Okay, so expect that level. We mentioned that. But now that we've seen the decline, look, I'd be relatively bullish. If you're going to hold it long term, and I mean long term, then, it should continue. It should continue its trajectory and trend and everything like that. But a lot remains on, China could ruin this stock at any point in time. Let's have a look at JD.com as well. JD.com benefiting from the news, I guess. That's why it's on a run. Another problem for Alibaba is that we have competition. Always got to remember Amazon, JD, etc. This is just really bullish right now. Getting away from the 20, already on a strong trajectory, similar to pretty much any other tech stock. If we have a look at what it's been holding to, seems like there's a moving average, probably not the 50 exponential here, that's doing a whole bunch of pullbacks to. So it might be worthwhile tracking a couple of moving averages on this, or just recognizing that when it gets close to that 50, it's been buying very strongly. So for now, I'd be looking at a pullback, hitting the 20, 84, maybe some of the height coming out of this stock. Check out Square, the never-ending bull run. So we had our line drawn up there the other day through the previous resistances and end up holding, just like all the kind of tier 1 buys held. Square doing pretty well. Where to now? Well, it looks like it's going to go bullish back into the 190, find some resistance, maybe sell off. Hard to tell with Square, it's just gapping up like the rest of the market. But that was a decent little buy zone, and we did talk about that on the stream. So we had also Beyond Meat, didn't we? I'd be interested to know with Beyond Meat, if anyone knows better than I do out there on the fundamentals here, do they actually have a unique product? Does anyone know, does Beyond Meat have a truly unique product that is going to be hard in terms of moat to take over? Has anyone eaten their meat? I haven't eaten their, vegetable meat. Anyone eaten this? 40 in the UK says, yep, going to be mega in the US. Well, actually, people around Europe, I know that sports gambling is huge in UK. Very large in the UK, very large in the, obviously in Europe. Massive. $10.77 again coming in with $5. Man, $10, you support us a lot on this channel. Thank you very much. $5 American dollars says keep it up. Thanks, man. No one can beat it, says Fraser. Harley says no. No, lots of competition, Imo. No barrier to entry. Barrier is super low from my understanding here. I've got this thing with investments. Trading it, fine. But if I'm investing in a company, then again, I was proved wrong a little bit with A2 Milk. But if I'm investing, because they have good marketing. But if I'm investing in a company, I like to have some kind of either crazy marketing, which A2 Milk did, or I want to have a moat, a decent kind of moat. I like moat. Maybe you don't like moat like I like moat, but I think Warren Buffett likes moat as well, I'm pretty sure. So if you have a significant competitive advantage, it's usually good. Now this stock is pretty wild. Nice pullback zone, came back into the 140, almost tapped it, just got before. This is just another lesson when you're trading and you're looking at a zone, box the zone and take just the fair price, yeah? Don't get too funny about, I have to get $40. Take $40 and something, because you're just going to miss out otherwise. Now, don't be crazy. Don't be like, I want $40 and then go and take, sorry, I want $155 in this case. No, wait, $140. But I don't take 155 just because you're like, oh, near enough's good enough. Get close to it, but don't be unrealistic about your expectations. So it's coming up to the 2 moving averages. You'd expect some resistance here, guys. About 160, probably some resistance. A little bit of resistance previously. Little pullback. Maybe it double bottoms. Maybe it comes back and touches the zone again. If it bounces that time, you can maybe get into it. And if it gets through the 160 then, very, very strong. Up to 180, 200 again. Notice it stops just before 200. Always a sign to me that retail community is trading it. When a market stops it before a psychological level, that's a Wall Street sell. Because they're nasty creatures. Everyone talking about Neo. People love Neo right now. Look at it go. So this one's gone even more vertical than we thought. This is in hyperactive mode. We were here for the announcement. So I think the announcement took it into this day, and we thought that would probably sell off the next day, which I guess it partially did after the exuberance, but not for long, did it? It just kept going. These stocks, these EV stocks, they know no bounds of craziness. The thing with the EV stock here is if you're thinking, oh, I want to buy it here, it's great stock. Well, what do we know? Let's go back to that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 concept. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What if we get another 20 touch eventually when it kind of blows off a little bit? Is there going to be buyers at the 20? I'd argue probably. Always has been. Still will have bullish intent. We know that when these EV stocks blow off and they sell off a bit, they sell off hard and then they go up to... Can anyone tell me in the room what Fibonacci do we generally expect in a blow off for the retracement to get to? And I think NEO will blow off. $7.77 says Beyond Meat is a fad. It will pass too many added chemicals. Could certainly be $7. I know so many companies. There's a whole bunch here in Australia, a whole bunch in Europe. Tetsu says, I think Beyond Meat product is okay, but I have to disagree. It isn't some super amazing veggie burger. Well, I have not eaten it, but I would tend to agree with that. All right, Jeremiah got it right. Good work. Yogendra, well done. 61.8 fib on a pullback with a blow off. Absolutely. That means you've been to a lot of our... we haven't talked about blow off for a while, so that means you've been watching the videos and stuff. If we have a big decline, let's say the market goes crazy and comes back to the 20 straight away here. Probably won't just yet, but let's say it did. What generally happens in a blow off is the market... You can always tell a blow off, because it'll drop a huge percentage. It might drop 10 to 15, maybe even 20% very quickly in the matter of days, if not week. When it comes back though, what will happen is it usually gets it has like a slingshot, because there's so much buying pent up pressure. People want to be buying in NEO. They've seen the price memory. They've seen $30. They've seen it go to 42. Hey, I can make money. It's going to 50 again. This is just a buy zone. So they buy the blow off, and they usually buy it into a 61.8 to 78.6 fib. And this is the zone that generally tends to be the resistance, and then it comes down and it does a Tesla, where it sits there for a while and then eventually goes higher. Now, I'm not saying it won't go higher, but what will usually happen is it has the little bit of a blow off event. Now, we haven't seen this much excitement in NEO for some time. So we had some excitement here. We had the consolidation afterwards, but this is a whole new level of excitement. To put this in perspective, go to the weekly, whole new level, guys. Reminds me a little bit of the other stocks we've seen this year. So we're at 1 a.m. my time. We're about 27 minutes now away from the US market open. Let's go back to our sheet and have a look what's happening across all of the different areas. We've got US dollar declining here after the non-farms. Euro becoming stronger, cracking that resistance, possibly now coming down a little bit, retesting the resistance, and then maybe bouncing back up. We've got gold finding more bullish strength, 1960 almost. And we just had a resistance tap for the Nasdaq. So let's get the Nasdaq out here to a 1 hour chart. And we just tapped that 12,000 kind of 30 level and found some selling pressure on the futures. Also, S&P 500, 35.10 ahead of course, the market open. We're hitting some little bit of resistance, some selling on the futures. And who knows what's happening on the Dow. MTG, what do you think about it? What is MTG? Is that like Magic the Gathering or something? I don't know this one too much in terms of I have not particularly traded it. But if you're looking at it from a perspective of today and obviously the pre-market, this is boding pretty well. $11 clearly a little bit of a resistance. It hasn't ever closed above this zone. So that'll be a key break. And then next is 12, isn't it? Previous. Look at that. It's a lot of... There is going to be some selling pressure you would expect from here. Previous sup, probably previous... It's now going to become resistance. It's a big trend line on this. I think it's very, very valid to draw your trend line through these points. Let me just fix that. Yeah, I think that's a pretty valid trend line. Broke slightly here, but not enough to go, okay, that's a clean. This is pretty good, this trend line. I like this on MTG, if this is the stock. Just pure TA, this is going to be a critical break. Probably something like this happens. Today is pretty strong. 8% is pretty good. So it probably goes up a little bit more. comes back down, tests the previous resistance, acts as a support, and then bounces into 12 maybe. Biden winning now, just announced. I would not be surprised at all. Let's have a look. Actually, let's bring up a... I guess we'll just bring up something. We've got 538 here. See what they say. Pennsylvania is just overwhelmingly going to become his. Georgia, he's still only winning by a little bit, but this one's got so much more to count. They actually talking about it, or? Let's have a quick look here.
Phoenix. Zareen, good morning. Where do things stand in Arizona? We haven't heard a ton from the state lately.
Hi, good morning, Diana. We will in just about less than 2 hours here, but this is where it stands right now. Trump and Biden are separated by just 2 percentage points. This is good news for Trump. It's a
all right, they're not telling us anything. This sheet tells us more. So Pennsylvania is the decider really here. It's becoming too overwhelming, isn't it? I mean, if Nevada holds, Arizona might lose even. Georgia possibly recount, still wins. And then Pennsylvania is all that's needed. I think it's probably done. This one here just seems like way too handily won. Now it goes into lawsuits and craziness. But, yeah. You know, regardless of how you feel, I guess maybe it's over. Interesting. This is not too bad. Oh, okay. So it's true. Generation Recon says blockchain is tracking of real ballots. You hear this? I don't know about that. Beyond Veg, Keith says. What's that? Is that beyond? So it's Beyond Meat, which is Beyond Veg, which is what is that, like dirt or something? Is set to IPO next month with meat-based vegetables. Ugh. Wow. But this is the thing. There is so many companies getting into that. There's so many startups even here in Australia that I know of. Can we look at McDonald's? Absolutely. I love McDonald's. More to buy it than anything else. 216.13. So I think McDonald's, now here's the interesting thing. Do we think that Biden, let's say Biden wins, he's won maybe. If that happens, will they see lockdowns in other states? Okay? Let's ask the community. Do we see lockdowns in other states right now? Like coming in over the next couple of months? Do you think yes or no? For people in America, this is mostly the question. I'd like to know that. Thanks very much there, Clark Vincent. Yes, because if we are going to get lockdowns... Yes, a few people saying yes, a few people saying no, 100% yes, yes. I can't see how it won't affect the restaurant sector. And therefore, McDonald's kind of lagged a little bit in recovery based on that. And I think it's declining slightly for that reason. Now, I've mentioned quite a few times that I'm relatively bullish here on McDonald's in high unemployment. Like I've talked about that down here. Talked about how I thought it was pretty good at 180. I talked about it how it was good at 200. It's gone to a nice level. It's gone to maybe an overextended level. It's pulled back now. It's actually not bad value here. But let's have a look at what our great Koifin thinks. Well, firstly, we'll just quickly thank Aussie Cobbler. Aussie Cobbler 71, Australian $10. That's enough to almost buy some McDonald's. He says, thank you for your time and analysis. No worries, Aussie Cobbler. thank you for supporting the channel, and thank you for being here, of course, during our analysis at 1:11 a.m. And it sounds like you're from Australia, so that's pretty crazy. $77 says we are approaching winter here, Tom. Yeah, exactly. You're in winter. We're in the southern hemisphere. We're already done with that one. But if you do lock down, that's probably going to be negative to the restaurant sector. So if you're in restaurant sector stocks, potentially you do see some decline. I'm bull on McDonald's, and let's bring up the Koifin. I need to contact the Koifin guy actually, because I need to see whether he can do something, which I'd like him to add into his program. Koifin's pretty cool, guys. I talked about this during the US election stream. This is one of the sweetest free applications I have seen. Whoop, better log in first, 1 second. All right. Can't be giving away that information. So this is a sweet program, and if you enjoy it, you have to subscribe, yeah? But basically, this one here gives us a whole bunch of information. So we can go to McDonald's, and we can basically bring up the McDonald's. We can bring up the consensus estimates if we want to see what the monkeys think. And they've actually upped their estimate recently. So we've got a 237.45 average target, strong by 18, which is a pretty good number here. You can see here the historical estimates. You can have a look at all the different quarters. How cool is that? All the different quarters, all the fiscal year results, the EBIT, the revenue. It's sweet. All the information up here for you. A little bit of div. Sneaky 2.36% div. Not bad, actually, considering how bad cash rate's going to be for a while. Market cap. I don't know. I think this is a sweet program to get everything here and be able to chart it out. So McDonald's has upside according to, you know, the monkeys. Now, it's at a decent price right now. High unemployment equals bullish momentum. From a price action standpoint, where are we? Well, we're right at the support. And why are we there? Because shutdowns are imminent, potentially. If we get shutdowns, and that's what people are scared of, we might go 200. Do we think there's buying pressure at 200? I certainly would say there could be potential technical buying pressure there. If we took like a whole move up, fib, where's the 38.2 fib as well? Let's have a look here. We've got here not even a 23.6 of the whole move. I don't know if I'd use the whole move here for a fib. I think with fib drawing, you may not do that. You probably just take the last move. I feel like it's already gone too far. So this would probably be the fib I'm drawing. So we hit a 38.2. That's good. So that should be where it starts to bounce. But it could even go to the magical 61.8, what some people call the golden fib. I don't particularly call it that. But 200, if it gets under here and closes, even today, expect a 200 move on McDonald's. And I would be relatively bullish on that. Sounds like $10.77 coming in again. $5 American. Tom, get some of the Mickey D's with your coffee, mate. Thank you very much, man. Don't want to have a heart attack though there, $10. We'll let everyone else buy the McDonald's. I'll just have the coffee. Thank you very much though, mate. Aussie Cobber 71 says Adelaide 12:45 a.m. It's Marlene. Thank you very much, Marlene. Changed my YouTube name. Well, now that makes a bit of sense. Hello, Marlene. Good to have you there. How accurate is Koifin? So many websites have inaccurate information. I've generally found it pretty good. It's just good enough for the sector rotation. It's awesome, guys. Like, definitely worthwhile checking out. We're only 16 minutes off the open right now. The Priestess, 10 American dollars. Thank you for the technical analysis. As a newbie, I am learning a lot. No worries, the Priestess. I hope you do learn quite a few things. If you get some things out of today, it would be that obviously moving averages are a good indicator to use. Horizontal price action is really, really good. Support resistance and wait for close confirmations whenever possible. So let's have a look at 15 minutes into the bell here. We have green, 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 green across the board. We now have what looks like a pretty strong projection of a Biden win. We have Sportsbook basically going down to a certainty here. Sportsbooks are at 102 now since we've streamed. That's gone from 105 to 102 with the Pennsylvania result coming in. So it looks like America has a new without litigation, president. So I guess that's over maybe, if all these things hold, which they probably will. Pretty large moves across the board there. Let's just have a look here and see what they're talking about.
Is this switch in Pennsylvania for each candidate's path to victory at this point?
Well, look, President Trump needed Pennsylvania if he was going to have any path.
These people are just talking, so that's all right. $77 coming in here and saying, fact check Coifin, so far on track. Thank you very much, Sandola. That's why it's great to have a community that can do those type of things. I don't have time to do everything, but I definitely think the program looks good, and I've seen a lot of programs over the years. Mostly crap. It's free. How good's that? Every time I compare it with 3 to 5, they all have different analysis target estimates. Okay, so Don, that's probably because they're taking a different subset of data. So generally, if you have like a Bloomberg terminal, like McDonald's might be covered, it's pretty big stock, so it might be covered by 30 analysts, yeah? But then you might have a Reuters feed that's only got 20 or 25 analysts in it. And then, of course, if you take the average of those, you're not going to have as much. I've noticed things like FinViz, they don't have that many updated ones. So a lot of the time, it's like super not updated price estimates. Trigger Finger says, in Canada, anyone know how to open an account to trade the US market? Well, obviously, I would recommend Webull there, Trigger Finger, but with the link down below. But I'm not sure, actually. Ask the room. Anyone know if you can do that? Trigger Finger for FX, use Oanda through TradingView. Yeah, you could certainly do that if you want to trade FX. Lux Siege says, apparently Trump's going to admit defeat, advice from his advisors. That's true. Why the market's rallying? We probably don't really know. I mean, that's just the reality. We've had a decent jobs number. We now have a clear we're out of the gridlock in terms of, not the long-term gridlock because the Senate, but we're out of the gridlock of maybe the Biden, Trump kind of presidency thing. People are feeling good. Potentially go back and test that resistance. We still may see profit taking near the end of the week, though. Still may see profit taking near the end of the week. This is relatively bullish. This is probably bucking a lot of trends. It kind of reminds me of almost the exact same thing as 2016. We saw selling into it, except we saw flash crashing on the day, actually, during the Asian session. And then we saw a pickup after that. So we're now 12 minutes away from the open. What are we looking at? Well, we're looking at basically a test of highs here. 35.26 getting tested on the S&P. What have we got on the Nasdaq? We've got a 12,127 on the Nasdaq high, and we're trading at 12,065 right now. So pretty big moves coming into the market open. VIX probably declined then. Yep, VIX declined with the onset. I don't know how to feel about the market getting up to these points. My thought process is I'm looking at, well, I'm obviously long, but I'm looking at this trend line here on the SPX. I'm looking at a break of this trend line ideally, and then a retest if I think it's going to go super bullish. I think we're going to have a good Christmas, possibly a decent kind of bull run there, but Biden will most likely shut down parts of the economy. And if that happens, I don't know, that should technically rock the markets. Got to be a bit of a bad kind of feeling there, doesn't it? Neve Kashmir says, what's the best Australian broker without brokerage fees? I believe there's only like one. I probably will work with them a little bit soon, but there's very little that don't have brokerage fees. Depends what you're doing as well. There's not really one clear option there, Neve. What are you trying to trade? I mean, we obviously recommend Pepperstone for FOREX. We think they're one of the best providers, got great support, etc. But depends what you want to do. Jimmy says they will have to lock down, otherwise restrictions will be put on them from foreign countries. They are moving too slow. Sorry for the caps. No worries, man. Dollar generally is also participating in the current situation. I agree with that. Burnt says, ice cold now America can be ruined and sold off. Oh, okay. I won't keep reading that one ice cold, but fair enough. Obviously, no worries with the opinion. Jeremiah says, looks like a completion of Elliott Wave 4 and a beginning of 5, so perhaps a little ways up beyond the previous peaks before a bigger correction. Yeah, look, it's possible. I mean, with Elliott Waves, we're obviously 9 minutes away from the open. We'll put it on this screen quickly. Elliott Waves are, I think, really tough to trade, but they're good to give you a lot of confidence. But I think they're tough to kind of pick the zones and stuff, but they give you a lot of confidence both ways, which is cool. Alejandro says, hi Tom, I'm late to the stream. Did you already talk about the potential SPX pullback? Yeah, we talked about the zone there, Alejandro. So basically we've got here, and we'll look at the Webull pre-screener in just a moment. We've got here this trend line coming through. I'm going to call and use the trend line purely just because we've had 3 gap days up. Remember, we are on Friday. We could be seeing some profit taking. This is not a bad week. If you're trading off the US election into the Friday, yes, we don't have potentially to worry about the US election anymore, but now we have to worry about, well, what about some close-ups? What about some lockdowns in the US? What about these types of things? Does that concern me? Would I like to lock in my 10, 15%? Maybe I would. So there could be some selling pressure coming into the close of the day. Remember, the first hour is actually a really bad time to trade, and it's the last hour where the bigger decisions make. Just a reminder, we will be doing a Monday live stream for the opening bell as well, regardless of what's happening today. So come and join us. Subscribe if you want to come check that out. Okay, here we go. Johnny Bravo, good comment here. I wonder if Wall Street is anticipating the Senate stopping Biden administration from rolling back the tax breaks. That is 100% true, Johnny Bravo. They are definitely doing that. That's why the market, it is a gridlock where they've gone, hey, more of the same, all good. More of the same, all good. So let's now go and have a look at the Webull pre-market here. Let's have a look at the 20 billion plus kind of quotes. It's a good little thing you can do here for the pre-market. Trade Desk up 13%, Square up 7%. Another very nice move there for Square. Pretty decent. Roku, 5.2%. A bunch of cars doing all right as well here. What else we got? JD still doing well off, of course, the Alibaba, I guess, news. Banks up a little bit here as well. We've got some banks moving. What about the declines? Declines of the day. 10-cent music. All right. Kellogg. Tesla down 0.5 now. 0.59 now. It was down 1% before. Activision still hovering around that zone. Been a bit of a bull on Activision, but I really hate the way the company's run. I really hate it. I think they are just waiting and hoping they turn it around eventually. Zoom also declining, bit of money probably coming out of there and moving into other things. So bunch of moves across the board. Realistically, nothing too crazy from the pre-screener. There's ups and downs. We looked at the COIFIN before for the sector analysis coming into the market open. Just quickly re-look at that just to go through some of the things that have gone on since, of course, the election. Do I actually have the COIFIN here? I do. So we can go to the US sectors and have a look at the 5-day kind of sector average here. Just another reminder, best sector currently for the 5 days has been XLB. So XLB Materials has been the best. It's definitely going to benefit from what's happening to us in Australia as well. We're getting literally destroyed by China banning everything. So that's definitely, I think, helping what we've got going on here in America. Then on top of that, industrial is another sector that I think is going to do continuously quite well. It's been pretty improved. We've got XLU utilities getting rolled out of, energy still not doing that well across the board, and tech, and I think healthcare was probably the risky one. This is the one where the election made the difference. Look at this. Going up a little bit, some people positioning just in case, and then bang, and that's the gridlock stock. I would not be surprised to see that kind of sideways for now. So we're 5 minutes off the open. Give me some more questions if you'd like them answered while we wait for this open. We get ready for what could be an interesting first 15 minutes here in the markets. We've got a little bit of decline here. S&P futures hit that 35.26 and failed that level. If we take a look at the FinViz screener across the board, Refresh that little beast there. Silver doing well. Nice. Kind of long-term bulls on silver and copper right now. So that's good. 35.07. This will be a delayed number. VIX decline. Crude, of course, not doing that well. Biden, you would think, wouldn't be the best for energy right now. So that's not going to do too well. Gold may continue up. In crypto, of course, Bitcoin just going absolutely ballistic right now. So congratulations to people that held that. S&P 500 just sold off. Look at that. We moved across the screen and we lost about 10 points. Let's go up here through the questions. Can you look at EA? It's down over 7% today because the guidance was under the analyst estimate. But long term, they should do pretty well with the next-gen consoles from Project. Project, do you play games? I do hate EA. Who else hates EA? The worst. It's not in the game. It's definitely not in the game. The worst games company. They got terrible. I dislike them so much, but we're not talking about dislike. But this company is evil. Look, EA declined. It's in a pre-market here at 7.64. I noticed also that I'm pretty sure they're doing a bit of deal with Steam. I think that's important because Origin, which is another bad platform they made, they've had Apex move over now to Steam. I think that's a big deal. So nice little kind of support was here. We're pre-market here at 118. So what happens next? Let's go to the monthly, see the trades. I think they're going to do fine. You know, EA always pull a rabbit out of the bag. They've got another Battlefield they'll bring out one day, next-gen consoles, everything like that. They'll make money. So you're probably looking at this 110 area, just previous resistance, little spike here at 108, 108, possibly all the way pullback. It's already hitting some pretty serious numbers today. 118. That is pretty much right here. So it's going to open right on the low that it bounced off. Oh, it's tough, isn't it? This level should have buying pressure on it, and that's where it's opening. But if the announcement is bad and the market hates it, I wouldn't be surprised at all for it to go to the 200 simple moving average where you've got like a box that you can really draw. It's not incredibly clear, but it's either this zone or this zone you would expect bouncing on EA. We're 2 minutes off open now, so let's go back. Household Dog says, long-term EA hater here since Battlefield 2. Yes. Actually, I like Bad Company. That was pretty good. Alibaba supposedly about to drop at open, says Ice Cold. Well, let's bring that one up on the screen on the bottom right down here. Let's bring up the Baba. So I think Baba, the big problem with this stock is obviously we have intervention from the Chinese government on this stock. This is a negative thing. We do not like that. Look at what they've done to a few other stocks like Treasury Wine Estates comes to mind in Australia. Wine exporter, not doing well right now. So we've got gold moving down, coming into the open. We're now only 40 seconds away from the open. It is all coming in. Let us get ready with our bell. Bit of selling coming into the futures here. We do expect that there should be selling off this line. So let's see if it can hold today. Will people take profit on a Friday? Get ready with the bells, guys. Gareth says EA Star Wars Origin available on Steam now. Yeah, quite a few are. All right, here we go. We're about off. Dun. All right, here we go. Customary bell time. Ooh, just like we're in the pits. We're all in the pits. We're ready to trade. And it's Friday off a crazy week. So we're open and it looks like we're holding the zones right now, but we know everything can change pretty quickly. We'll stick on this chart for the next couple of minutes. Let's have a look at the Webull kind of pricing coming up here. What percentage changes do we have coming in? So looks like, let me get that going on. We'll give that a couple of minutes. Give that a minute just to refresh through as everything opens. So markets have really opened at the 35.09. S&P is always the one we watch first. And then of course we want to look at the Nasdaq as well. Alibaba opens 1.4% at a 291 handle. Green, 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 says Snook. Let's go. Jimmy says, does anyone really believe the jobs numbers being spat out? Not really. What do you think of GE? Oh, no, George. No GE. Okay. We're just seeing some movements here coming through. Thank you to all 481 people out there that have been watching and subscribing throughout the session. I've already talked about NEO, by the way. Jimmy says, do not listen to analysts. The price action will tell you where the stock is going. Jimmy, you're the man. Absolutely. Everyone hates EA. That's good. Siddharth says, EA Sports, it's not in the game. Absolutely. But the treasure loot box cards are in there. Yep. Baba holding a 290, coming off that support twice off 280. Let's have a quick look at the EA in the game. 117, 116, down 8.7. Come on, get down more, like it deserves to be. But yeah, let's have a look at actually EA in a little bit more detail. We'll go back over to the markets, just see the declines coming through here. We'll bring up the analyst expectations before this particular event. Let's see what the peeps thought on EA. It's in the game. We use the Koifin here. Why not? Koifin is pretty good. Consensus estimates. 155, 33% upside. Obviously now they're all going to be like, yeah, we'll go back to hold. So they'll move down to hold. But it does show that they had a pretty high expectation. I don't think that analysts understand the games market that much. But look at the pipeline of the games. Consider when they're selling. They've got what they've got going through, reviews, that kind of thing. You'd be surprised how much you can beat Wall Street's analysis just based on knowing the games industry. It's not that hard when you know the games industry and you know the dirty loot boxing and everything else that they're doing. So definitely EA has upside from that potential. We'll load EA down the bottom here. There we go, 117. But also it's hard to hold a stock for a long time if you hate it a lot. Okay, so the markets are selling off here, 34.94. They basically opened up right on that trend line. So they opened up very close to our trend line up here. Remember, the futures were trading at 35.29. So just on the previous high, and then we saw the market open up slightly lower, and there is some decline coming through here. Now we've got pivots on this one. If you don't have pivots, definitely check them out. Add indicators, go pivots, monthly, weekly, daily. Use monthly, generally speaking. Sometimes you can use weekly, but SPX, monthly pivots. Do not put your pivots on the futures. It will not work out for you so well. Go back over to the room. Got a whole bunch of things coming in here. AMD going up. Lux Siege says, let's go. Absolutely. No problem with AMD going up. AMD just smashed Intel. Actually, how's Intel trading? Intel should not be trading well. Oh, it's bad. The value play. Oh, man. We've said this a few times, though, yeah? When you get a gap like that, it doesn't often fill properly. So what might happen is you get the accumulation like you did over here, but this kind of gap usually means something bad about the company. You've got to really think about it if you're going to hold it. There's trade potential. There was definitely a buy zone here with a take profit at 56. Previous SUPs became resistance. But then, unfortunately, the second really bad kind of zone. Is Intel getting into long-term value, though? Let's look at this line. This line, you wouldn't want Intel to get under here, guys. If you're bull Intel, this is the zone. I don't know why it's 43.75. Don't ask me that question, but look at this. So much buying pressure off this zone. No wonder it stopped there. And if you say price action doesn't work, check out that. Bang, bang, every time for quite a long time. This is a multi-year SUP zone. Imagine if it comes back down and double bottoms off that area. Then you can buy it. That'd be sweet. They'll eventually get it through. Intel has a very good name, but they really, really need to improve their tech. So let's go back over to the markets here. We've got S&P still declining, dollar slightly strengthening. What's this? Oh, that's EA. EA is still down more than it was pre-market, 9%. And then, of course, we've also got a decline coming through here in gold. Gold down to a 1950. That's down $10. Makes sense, though, when we look at gold. Let's have a quick look at it overall here. So we got through the 1930. We mentioned today that during a normal market, it should decline back to a 1930, hit a 20 moving average at the same time, and then find buying pressure. So 1960 was previous resistance over here, and it got through a little bit more over that zone. I think no real reason 1960 other than it just was the previous high, but it should technically come back down and test that 1930, we would think. Let's go back over to the kind of changes of the day, what's doing well, what isn't. So we have Trade Desk with this is 20 billion plus, Trade Desk with 15%, Square doing well, 5% up, a whole bunch of stocks actually up pretty nice there. And then the declines, Tencent Music still, Zoom, things are moving fast. Look at this go. It's like a roller coaster. Tesla down 1.2% now, more than the 0.5 it was before. NetEase also down. It's probably off concerns, I guess. A little bit there. Let's go to even bigger. Let's go 100 bill. Need to bring this up. Must be missing a few here. There we go. I wonder why we didn't have them before. All right, there we go. We've got a more complete list going on here. All right, so Amazon also down to 3258. Amazon's come up pretty strong the last couple of days. Microsoft 219. 219, wow, that's a big move, isn't it, on Microsoft? Huge move. All right, well, we'll go into the first 15 minutes here. We'll see what's happening on the markets. We continue to have sell-off after the open. So what's really the important levels to watch for the day on the S&P 500? What do we think could be happening next? Well, let's look at the SPX, go to a 1 hour chart and just see if there was anything that was kind of streamlined through the previous day. So I guess I'd be looking at 3460 as there should be some buy pressure come back in there. Now, why would that happen? Well, we have some previous resistance at this zone on the real market, the SPX. When you're doing your analysis, first come to the SPX, look at the areas, and then if you want to, load the US 500, and then just remember the 3460 and see whether the futures would agree with you on that level. So if we have a look at the 3460, it's pretty close to the previous lows as well for the day. So a close below 3460, that's going to trigger further selling pressure, possibly down to our kind of 3420, 3400 zone we spoke about at the beginning. Remember, our big analysis right now on the S&P 500 is that the daily gaps have been too significant, too fast. There should be some profit taking. Hey, you know what this has reminded me of? The beginning of the stream. Remember we talked about that stop hunt candle and how if it fully rejects the candle, like a big wick like this, after reaching the previous peak, that often is a decent sell signal. Well, will we see that? Will we see the close like that point? So we're really talking about a fib retracement here with some profit taking. Now, I'm not saying, I don't know if Friday's the best day to get it in, but 38,250 fib level through this zone, 3,400 psychological, previous support resistance all the way through the 3420, 38,2 fib pullback at that 3420. We know that the market loves doing a retracement into this area in a healthy market. So it's doing exactly what people don't expect. A lot of FOMO coming in. Let's see if we get selling. $2 coming in here from Connor Schaefer. He says, is Trump losing affecting stock markets badly? I don't think that was what's going on here. It was, everyone had projected, like sports bet, all of those types of things had it projected that Biden was well on track of winning for a little while here. So I doubt that's doing it. Have they actually said anything on these panels?
What we've all voted for.
And they were trying to get inside the recorder's office to take a look at the ballot counting. Now, the county and the Secretary of State
it goes to
has been
everyone
trying
suing
to
each other,
reassure
yeah?
everybody that even if a Sharpie is used on the ballot, it's...
Oh, they're still talking about Sharpies. All right. Anyway, that Sharpie thing's crazy. But, all right. So basically, yes, I don't think that's really a big concern. I think that was already projected. Wall Street has much better metrics than any of us do at figuring that out. Alberial says Alteryx, negative 13.2% on earnings results. We've got a decent amount of declines on the big stocks as well. Amazon still down 2. Remember, Amazon, no stimulus, going to suffer a little bit. Remember what we've been talking about. If you don't believe stimulus is coming, be careful in consumer discretionary right now. Facebook still holding at 290, down 1.5. So there's some decent little selling through here. McDonald's could continue to sell like we discussed, and then have a nice pickup. Imagine if it got to 200 again. Wouldn't that be sweet? Is AMD a good buy today? Whoa, this is a good question. Oh, look at that. 115 now, down 10 on EA. They do not like what they see on EA. Anyone know if they've got any good games coming out for the Christmas season? They must have a pretty weak lineup, I guess. Gold continuing the decline. Looking at that 1930 right now. Let's bring up what were we going to bring up then? AMD. Bring up AMD again. So the weekly's looking pretty strong. Great result for them out of their chips. Their chips are just phenomenal from what I've heard and seen on the reviews. So this makes the sense. It's going to be similar and in line with the idea on the market itself. We're basically looking for a decline here into the dynamic moving averages, an 80 buck handle where basically the market moves down to the 20 and the 50 exponential, finds form of dynamic support, and then bounces off that. That would be kind of the area that you're looking for. What are the expectations for AMD? Let's have a look at the consensus estimates. They've got an 87.74 12-month target. Probably these are a bit old, so probably the hold and strong buys are the more updated figures. I'd probably be doing a bit of analysis there, but I think the big thing is that AMD are cracking into a very important area, being the laptop area. They are in laptops and people are buying them. That's the first time I can remember for a long time that's happened. Assassin's Creed. Isn't Assassin's Creed owned by Ubisoft? Puska says EA is hated by players for years. Certainly has been, but not by casuals. Not by casual as much. And also the sports game have always taken them through. AMD long term for me is undervalued. Such a nice stock. Sold my swing positions today. I think a decline could come through. I tend to agree with you. AMD might be having the second coming here. They may be able to ramp production. They may do very well, potentially even under the Biden administration. They're clearly smashing Intel like ridiculously, so they're gaining market share and therefore brand recognition. I've got an AMD in this computer. You know, the one I built, a year ago. It's a nice little trading computer. AMD's in that. When they bought out those new chips, how can you deny them? Gareth says everybody hates Ubisoft too. That is true, Gareth. The greatest of all time says Biden said he would let WTI oil suffer, right? Doesn't that mean that Brent crude and European companies should go up due to the rising demand and dropping offer by the USA? Well, basically it would mean less production. Is that the general? I think that it's very expensive to get the fracking oil out. So certain areas just wouldn't be economical. They'll have to shut down without the government offsets, I believe. Look into that a little bit further. Sinan says Cyberpunk 77. Yep, that's a very popular game that's been a little bit denied recently. I think it's not coming till December. So we're seeing the markets on the 15-minute close here. Mostly dollar strength coming through. We've got weakness across all indices. I'd be looking again at things like a 4-hour here. Looking for that candle rejection. Remember, we talked about this. We had the high, the rejection wick, possibly a close lower here. When does this candle close? 14 minutes. Okay. Interesting there. And then possibly a continuation through there, and then we get down to that 34 kind of 100, 34.20. And there's a lot of dynamic moving averages on all time frames floating around on futures and real markets. When you're looking at moving averages on the S&P 500, use the SPX whenever possible. NVIDIA's new graphics cards are a big step up. AMD has a lot of catching up to do. AMD's got a decent card though, from what I understand, Sedan. Not bad. PS5 processor is AMD? Yes. All right, guys. Well, look, it's 1:45 a.m. in the morning for me. So thank you very much for coming out, for joining us through the non-farm session into, of course, the stock market open. We've really enjoyed doing the sessions recently this week. I'm pretty destroyed this week, I must say. The election, the stream on Wednesday, everything else that we've been doing in terms of investing. It's been a very tough week to trade. So if you've been trading and you haven't been doing that well, don't be too dismayed, because it has been a tough week. Investing's different to trading. Yeah, if you're picking a third before, third after, or all of the money before based on your thoughts, it's not as hard. But when you're trading, let's say currencies, it's been a tough week. If you're trading commodities, it's been a tough week. Stocks, well, if you've just been buying, it's not a tough week, is it? But if you've been trying to pick the sells and the buys, that's been a bit harder. So thank you very much for the donations. I really appreciate that. Thanks for the likes. Thanks for the subscribes. You guys are the best. We've got the best trading community on YouTube. Not even a question. And that's thanks to all of you. We'll see you again Monday for another stream coming into the market open. I'm very interested to see whether we sell these holds and we have a continued sell-off. Watch for the weekend market edition of course, our weekly analysis. And I'm just glad this US election maybe is over. Let me refresh that before we go here. What's going on over here? What have we got going on? Do we have any more counts coming through? So that's still the old count, and that's still the old count. And that hasn't dropped, and Arizona's probably not dropped, so no worries. Thank you. I'll leave you with the standard customary exit music, and I will have a very good weekend. I hope you all do too. Night, everybody, or morning.